There has been so many amazing matches in the history of Overwatch, stemming back from 2017 to 2022. 2023 was mostly stinkers, especially for the finals we got, and Overwatch Champion Series so far hasn't had any matches that are too interesting comparatively. Thankfully, in the past, we did have plenty of matches that were actually worth our time watching. Today, I will be sharing what I think are the top 5 best Overwatch matches of all time. This may or may not be factual. You can decide on that. Number 5 is a simple match, not a final, no stakes at all, but a more than memorable game, simply known as the Toilet Bowl. First, some may be shocked why that's even on a top 5, but I can easily counter that with how would it not be on a top 5? With entertainment to this degree, who did not enjoy watching this? Seriously. If you don't know what the Toilet Bowl is somehow, putting it simply, it's just the two worst teams going against each other. There were times people tried to recreate the magic, saying the 2021 London Spitfire versus Vancouver Titans is a Toilet Bowl, or the 2023 Paris Eternal versus LA Valiant, but they pale in comparison to the original 2020 Houston Outlaws versus Boston Uprising. This is a first to 3 series that went 7 maps with 2 draws, so many mistakes and problems to the point it genuinely looked like a ladder match instead of a real Overwatch League one. Typically, it's casual players that don't understand what is happening in a lot of league matches, but this one flipped on its head to make the hardcore viewers and analysts not understand what's going on at all. No joke. This match is genuinely terrible. I don't think there is a single other match that's ever happened to the point of almost anyone being able to find an egregious error in every single team fight, regardless of their understanding of this game. People also paid money to watch this. Real human beings were sitting in a seat. There were real eyeballs looking at this match on a screen, which makes it even better. There isn't really too much I can add aside from pure disgust. There's no storylines, no nothing. If you like shit, bad gameplay, Bren and Sideshow trying their best not to laugh or make fun of what is happening, this match is for you. It falls into the category of so bad it's good, like Birdemic. This is the Birdemic of Overwatch competitive play. Anytime a person asks me what match they should watch, it's always this one. You're always going to find something stupid you missed the last time you watched it. This match is just special and memorable enough to be on a top 5 list. Some competitive elitists may not be happy with this entry, but it's better than most of the finals we got throughout the entirety of Overwatch League, so I don't really see how you could argue with that. I think a big mistake Blizzard made was not marketing this match during every LAN, having a screening of the Toilet Bowl for returning and new people to watch. I would love to sit there, buy my ticket, do an 8-ball, and watch this god-awful entertaining match. It's just actually perfect. If you're going to watch this at home, though, the best way to do it is definitely through the Avast co-stream, because that elevates the experience even more.
Very low, self-destruct into the back line, Jerry! He tried to make the moves! Jerry! Oh my word, he falls to his death! The counter charge by Muma, and Houston are gonna hold on.
Number 4 is where the real list begins. As entertaining as the Toilet Bowl was, it definitely cannot be above the really great matches. In this spot is Stage 3 final of 2019, Shanghai Dragons versus the San Francisco Shock. At this point in 2019, people were really starting to get sick of GOATs. Of course, it still has its fans, but 3 stages of the same thing over and over again was getting really boring outside of watching Shock and Vancouver go against each other, or even tossing NYXL into the mix. Thankfully for our sanity, Shanghai was one of the experimental teams that wanted to go and find a way to beat GOATs, playing their own style. They were of course okay at GOATs in previous stages, but here they just wanted to try something new because they knew they weren't able to actually beat the best teams at it. The comp Shanghai decided to run was a lot of Pharah, Doom, Sombra, Roadhog, amongst other DPS heroes being swapped out depending on the map, where Shanghai had more success with this than any stage prior, even having the hardest bracket to make finals and still overcoming that hurdle, going against the 3 best teams consecutively. NYXL, who finished this stage 8-0, then Titans, and then finally going against the Shock, where it genuinely looked to be a 4-0 in the beginning. Shock just had no answer to what the Dragons were doing. Ding made a name for himself on Pharah during this stage. DM was really good at hit scan. Young Youngjin was outstanding on both Doom and Roadhog. Sadly, all people remember him for is the C9 incident, but he was actually a good player. The Doom performance from Youngjin in this final was kinda crazy. Shock did their best to try and play a DPS comp also, while mixing in goats. Shock struggling so much against the Dragon's experimental comp was also just interesting to see. Instead of Shanghai conforming to the meta and being just okay, they played to their own strength. And sometimes throughout Overwatch League history, there was a lack of experimentation. Obviously, it has its chance of failing. Not every risk will pay off. But on the other hand, you can also find the counter to the STD of Overwatch, which is what the Dragons did here. A perfect example of a team finding their style and having success with it. Of course, it wouldn't have been a good match if we were delivered a 4-0. It was very close to being a reverse sweep from the Shock. The player quality on that roster is way higher than the Dragons, so seeing them up 3-0 was unexpected to begin with. I don't think there's ever been an upset to this degree in a stage final. Shanghai was not a team that was pub stomping the league, they were just mid, beating not only NYXL, who was a top team, then Vancouver, then Shock, is 3 massive upsets in a row. This is undoubtedly the longest string of upsets ever. It's 100% worth a watch if you have not seen this one. Just a legendary match. Number 3 is a match a lot of people actually have at the number 1 spot. 2020 Summer Showdown, Philly Fusion versus the Paris Eternal. You can summarize this match as just Genji. If you want to see absolute peak Genji play and endless farming, or actually I should say almost, because Who Are You wasn't a part of this match, so I need to pump the brakes on that one. You can't have peak Genji play without him. But EQO, one of the most underrated players of all time, going against Sparkle in a Genji mirror was just amazing to watch. The performances by both of these players were insane, never missing a beat on the hero. This meta came to be from one small damage increase to Genji's shurikens and making his secondary fire recover faster, which made him pretty broken at the pro level, able to get blade a lot quicker and obviously doing more damage in the neutral. So you needed a very mechanically talented Genji player to maximize this value, which both teams obviously had. On top of this, we got to see Carpe versus Xe and Hitscan matchups who were exceptional during this time period, both MVP candidates. It's a very flashy DPS meta, which of course creates a ton of highlights. 2020 was the shield shooting season, so it was a breath of fresh air to watch a hard Genji meta, since he's just an expressive hero and really fun to watch at the pro level. Come to think of it, in Overwatch 1, Genji was really only meta during the Apex days. In Overwatch League, he was barely played outside of certain point strategies or specific players trying to force it. Until the Overwatch 2 seasons where we got to see him a lot more, so I guess it makes sense to why everyone was excited for these matches. Depending on the side you're on, this was a very amazing match or a sad match. This is definitely the saddest second place Philly ever got. They were so close to winning this, unfortunately just choking at the end. Watching live, I genuinely thought the momentum boost of EQO getting a literal team wipe would have propelled them to getting a victory. He saved their ass so hard at the final hour on map 7, and to this day, I don't think we have a better Genji clip than his clutch there.
And it's going right down to the distance as the overtime burns through. The Fusion need to find an opening. Sparkle now moving through, but Xy's on the flank. The headshot onto Carpe. One of their star players taken out early. And Boombox just left to his own devices in the sidelines. He goes down to Fusion. Only a couple of players left remaining. EQO's got to come up huge right now. Everyone is weak. EQO with the blade, pulls it through, builds it up. Will it be enough? 1 kill, 2 kill. Are you kidding me? EQO now finds it with the third. And now it is overtime. Xe moving over to the Tracer to try and deny it, but EQO! What a player, what a star!
There is no real storyline with this one. It's honestly just almost perfect play from both teams, and that's it. Plenty of highlights and prime entertainment for everyone. Number 2 is the 2022 Grand Finals, the only Grand Finals that wasn't a piece of dog shit in Overwatch. Typically, they were boring 4-0s. Some people do say the 2020 Shock versus Seoul with a 4-2 was interesting. It was fine, but this one beats it out 100%. Dallas Fuel versus San Francisco Shock was a very intriguing match with a ton of storyline intertwined on top of being fantastic play from both teams. Dallas Fuel was the team who started this comp everyone decided to mirror, where Dallas Fuel was the best right away, of course, acquiring the very first Grand Finals spot. Then we had Shock, who got sent to the lower bracket and pulled a 2019, burning through every single opponent day after day. When they did make it to the Grand Finals, before the match even began, it had a ton of stakes and interest. On Dallas's side, if they won, Rascal would be the first and only 3-time champion. Fearless would finally finish his legend. Dallas was always a shit franchise until 2021, and their dedicated fans have wanted them to win a ring since 2018, where they were first fabled to be good. When it came to Shock, Violet and Striker would be the first 3-time champions, as well as the franchise. Proper would have the most individually successful season in league history, more so than already, winning Rookie of the Year, MVP, champion, and obviously he's going to win Finals MVP based off of his performances prior. If Shock won, it was pretty obvious he was going to get Finals MVP. The Sojourn play was just disgusting. This one just had so much riding on it that it made the outcome very interesting for both sides. Even if the meta was just mirror matches through and through, the match was worth watching. As the match was going on, seeing the tug back and forth of Shock looking better, then Dallas looking better, Shock improved to the point of being able to match the team who created the meta. The rapid improvement from them was just amazing to watch. Both teams were basically playing to perfection. Seeing this in a mirror match is inevitable, of course. After the teams play the same exact comps continuously, the path is going to be boring, but mostly every best match of all time is a mirror for a reason. Once you reach that final, you're just looking at the two best teams playing what is essentially perfect at the specific mirror comp, whatever it may be. This one in specific had the highlight hero of Sojourn, so if you're just watching casually, there was something to look for, while also having intricacies to the point of more hardcore people being able to really delve into it. This match has a much better viewing balance than most people give it credit for. They just write it off because it's a mirror match, but I feel like both parties can enjoy this match equally. Proper and Edison were just on fire for this entire series, especially when John Sojourn came out during map 6 and 7. This is where he was born. Then you also had Fearless creating one of the biggest gaps in history against the only carried player in the lobby. The storylines on top of near perfect gameplay makes this match easily one of the best to most people who have watched it, and undoubtedly the best Overwatch Grand Finals of all time. For the honorable mentions, there are plenty of great matches that happened in contenders. Runaway versus Kongdu Panthera 2018 Season 2 Finals is one I can think of, or even during Apex like Lunatic High versus Kongdu Panthera Apex Season 3 Finals. Even some regular season matches like Chengdu Hunters versus Vancouver Titans in 2019 Stage 1 was fantastic, or maybe 2021 Houston Outlaws versus Shock May Melee qualifiers. Other league finals mentions would be 2020 May Melee Shanghai versus Seoul Dynasty, Stage 1 of 2019 Vancouver versus Shock, 2018 Stage 1 London versus NYXL. Those are a few of my favorites that I can think of off the top of my head. Make sure to leave your top 5 in the comments too. I'm positive there's some other great ones I'm missing from the contenders or Apex days. For my number 1 match of all time, it is Dallas Fuel versus Shanghai Dragons 2021 June Joust Finals, which is more based on the story going into it. Not saying the match itself wasn't good, because if you actually understand what's happening here, the match is amazing. The only issue is the hurdle of figuring this all out. Lots of people hated this meta for obvious reasons. I just loved the rivalry between Shanghai and Dallas Fuel that was brewing throughout this season. It was akin to Shock versus Titans in 2019, meeting each other in May Melee Finals where Dallas won their first tournament ever, and Shanghai was the runner-up there. Then, of course, meeting each other once again in the June Joust Finals. And during this stage, initially APAC was quite bad, playing this weird poke-style comp which was expected to get flattened by North America because the comp Dallas created was just so fast with the Lucio Moira rush. Making a poke comp work against this is nearly impossible unless you were able to cheat somehow. Dragons literally never played the comp they won the tournament with during the qualifiers. In the beginning of stage playoffs, Shanghai once again played the poke and other strange DPS rotations, and even attempting to mirror Dallas Fuel where they got completely rolled, this match was not close at all. After that loss, Shanghai thought, let's mirror this comp, but put the ball in instead of the Winston, where people started to question if that would even work against Dallas, since it didn't seem to have the ability to keep up with it, nor was Shanghai even on the same level at the Winston iteration. When Dragons entered the lower bracket, they tossed NYXL right into a meat grinder. There's not really much to say about that one. How they even got here in the first place is beyond me. Following this, Shanghai then dominated Atlanta Reign 3-0, actually utilizing the poke comp a little bit on 2CP, but the Atlanta Reign did the same thing as well. After this match is when some started to believe in the Shanghai ball train. Atlanta was a really good team during this meta, having a much more competitive match against Dallas Fuel the day prior. Apparently, the ball was just too much for Atlanta Reign to handle, and they couldn't adapt to it properly. Still, Dallas Fuel was the opponent to beat. They were the tournament favorites, and no one expected Shanghai to win or even make it to the finals for that matter, considering what we saw in their first match against Dallas. When the finals rolled around, I'm not even sure why Dragons even attempted to play the poke comp on Volskaya, but they did and got punished for it. Afterwards, they full committed on the ball no matter what. Where things slowly started to turn on its head, it seemed Shanghai was improving at their execution mid-series and adapting to everything Dallas tried to do. The first few maps were not close at all. Dallas pulverized Shanghai in map 1 and 2, but eventually that coin flipped and you could start to see Dallas getting tilted and not know what to do against Shanghai's ball comp. Watching Fearless rage swap to Roadhog is pretty crazy to see, especially considering how Dallas was playing this comp for over a month. They were the ones who created it. Then Shanghai comes in, starting to beat them at their own game after playing it for only 2 days. That is just absolutely insane to think about. Considering the amount of time and practice Dallas had for the entire stage, this is where that whole Shang AI term came from, because it really appeared Shanghai was downloading their opponent mid-match and adapting their playstyle around how to beat Dallas, which they inevitably ended up doing. This win made the whole Shanghai versus Dallas Fuel rivalry become a lot more interesting, which was sadly short-lived since Shanghai dominated the rest of 2021. Dallas Fuel was of course still good, just not on Shanghai's level. I view this match as a testament to how good that roster actually was, and is still my favorite match of all time. That is my list of top 5 matches. Make sure to leave your top 5 in the comments, and if you haven't watched any of these ones here, they are honestly worth the time. I'll leave a link to all of them in the description so you can find them easier and watch them. They are a hoot. Thank you for watching to the end. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Also check out my last video on the actual greatest Overwatch player of all time, who at this point I think has taken the spot over Violet, and I promise I will stop making videos about the GOAT. But if people can milk the 5v5 versus 6v6 for like 7 to 8 months now, I can milk the GOAT udder for just a little bit.